for the Community College President's Initiative in STEM. Thank you for turning on the recording button, Fran. I am delighted today to serve as your moderator and to introduce you to our panelists. As you all know that we have a number of, and we'll go to the next slide, Fran, as we talk about today, model community college and industry partnerships. So that if you go to our website at CCPI-STEM.org, you will see that we have 14 of our previous CCPI-Cast episodes available as both webcasts and podcasts. And we want to remind you, we have 2 upcoming CCPI-Cast on Friday, April the 11th, a discussion with our fellows and their mentors. And you know that this program, a grant from the National Science Foundation, the ATE program, we have a number of fellows from around the country who are in the midst of their doctoral studies and are very much committed to research in both STEM and workforce development. So please join us on Friday, April the 11th at 1 p.m. and Friday, April 25th at 1 p.m. for artificial intelligence and STEM education. Details are still coming, but we can assure you that it will be exciting. So next slide, please, Fran. So what I'd like to do at this moment is introduce you to today's panelists. We have Dr. Melanie Williamson, who is professor and dean of innovation at Bluegrass Community and Technical College in Lexington, Kentucky. We're also joined by Michelle Rivard, an R&D TS&D technologist at Dow. She's a member of the Committee on Chemical Technical Professionals of the American Chemical Society. And lastly, but certainly not least, we're joined by Stephen Partridge, the Vice President of Strategy, Research, and Workforce Innovation at Northern Virginia Community College. We'll engage in a lively conversation, and we'll ask as questions arise for you if you put them in the chat box. We have 2 of the members of the CCPI-STEM leadership team who will be monitoring the chat box, and they'll let us know that when we need to stop for a moment and answer a question from all of you. I do want to take a moment out and a moment of personal privilege. I see a number of my colleagues from here in the state of Maryland, so thank you all for being on the call. And we'll get started. So if we go to the next slide, Fran. I want to talk to you for a moment just about the key initiatives of CCPI-STEM. Again, the Community College President's Initiative in STEM. We are actually in our 4th year of the grant, and we operate, this was important to us as we saw the need to ensure that community colleges both understood and began to answer the clarion call for more students looking at STEM as a possible career opportunity as they're attending our institutions across the nation and certainly across the U.S. territories. So we knew that at that time, there were probably about 1.6 million openings in the skilled technician areas, and we believe that community colleges stand in the right place at the right time to support filling those open positions. That was 4 years ago when we wrote the grant. And so what we understand today is the number of openings have probably certainly increased over these last 4 years. We do this work through a series of regional networks led by former community college presidents. And what they are doing is working across their regions to engage community college leadership, presidents, vice presidents, deans, department chairs, faculty, as you begin to think about enhancing your programmatic mix, expanding your programs in STEM, and certainly encouraging students to enter the fields of STEM that are available and will likely become more available as time progresses. We also, as you've already heard, that we're going to have a webinar. We have a number of fellows, they're probably 15 or 20, and they come from across the country. They're engaged in their doctoral research and again, looking at research in workforce development and in the STEM fields. We offer the President's Press, which is a newsletter that comes out on a scheduled basis. And you can also go to our social media sites to follow us. All of this information is on our website, as I've already mentioned. So please feel free to browse the website. If you have any questions, you can call us. And as you hover over the map of the United States and some of our territories, you'll actually be able to see the names of our regional network chairs, and you can reach out to them if you're in that region and have any questions. We'll also at the end have an opportunity you to fill out to respond to 4 poll questions. So we'll ask that you stay with us to the end if you possibly can. And what we'll do now is begin our discussion with introductions of our participants. So, and that was the map. So you'll see that I've already talked to you about much of what we are doing in CCPI-STEM. And the other one last thing that I would say is we have developed a set of NSF ATE instructional modules. So therefore, inclusion in community college leadership graduate programs and leadership institutes. We think it's so important, especially for senior leaders, to understand the importance of looking at grants as opportunities to expand the work that you're doing at your local community colleges across your state and across your region. So those things are important to us as well. Each of our CCPI STEM fellows has a mentor who is either a sitting president, a former president, or someone who in his or her profession is deeply steeped in the STEM area. So with that, Fran, we'll get started. So we'll start with Dr. Melanie Wilson. As I've already said, that she is from Bluegrass Community College in Lexington, Kentucky. And Melanie, would you talk to us about what you're doing currently at Bluegrass Community and Technical College and how that really supports the impetus for STEM?
How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Of
Good.
students and faculty.
Yeah. How about you?
We'll ask that you do. Someone has his.
Fantastic. Always is that we've got.
You will mute yourself, Christopher. Christopher, if you'll mute yourself, please. And as you all come on, if you'll mute yourselves, that would be very helpful to us. So we'll go back to Melanie and give us some tidbits about Bluegrass and the kinds of programming that you're doing in the STEM area.
Sure, absolutely. I'm happy to talk to you, and thank you all so much for letting me have the opportunity to talk about the great things that we are doing in the Bluegrass. We're centrally located in the state of Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky. We're one of 16 colleges within the Kentucky Community and Technical College system. Each is an individually accredited college. We're the second largest. Lost something here. Hold on. There we go. My computer did something fun. That's technology. But we're the second largest with our enrollment. And so we're not a huge school, but we are the second largest in the state of Kentucky. We've got 6 campuses that serve 14 counties. And we have a lot of great partnerships. So some things that make us unique, we do have an equine program here that has a racehorse riding track within the program. We've got an orthotic and prosthetic program, and we were the first and only, to my knowledge, of community colleges to have offered one of the ACM Women in Computing conferences, so which I'm actually at today. I stepped out just to go to this, to be here with you. Some of our initiatives that we have done, we were the first to be able to offer a competency-based education within our system. And then we are the first who was designated as a Center for Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense within the state. So we have a lot of firsts. I think we're doing some great things. And part of it is funded by, if you'll go to the next slide, by the grants and partnerships that we have. We couldn't do that without a lot of partnerships and a lot of grants. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So we have currently three TRIO grants, which is, I think, really good because there's a lot of schools who only have one. So to have three is great. I've got two NSF active grants, one STEM, and then we have an ATE sub-award that's in AI. So we're doing a lot. We are partnering with our four-year institutions that are nearby in the fields of aquaponics and hydroponics. We were the first to receive a Google CSER for a 2-year college. So again, we try to dip into research, and that's been part of the passion of our president, but also our faculty have really supported that. So we have fostered that and really tried to make that part of the culture of our college. Some of our big partnerships, there's 16 states offer a FAME model for advanced manufacturing. We were the first in conjunction with Toyota. So when you have a FAME model, that's where it started here in the Bluegrass, not this campus, but a different campus. And then, which is huge. And now it's international. So we're seeing it in countries, we're seeing all over the world. And then we recently, I would say recently, the past couple of years, have developed a collaborative degree with the University of Kentucky. And it's a true 2+2. We offer the first 2 years, they offer the last 2 years. And that's kind of a unique model because generally it's a pathway into a 4-year degree. They don't even touch the first 2 years, and they do that so that everybody has the same experience coming in. So this was proposed by an industry cohort. So about 10 or 12 businesses got together, said, we need these 2 degrees. We do lean systems and we do computer engineering technology. And they really got together and said, we absolutely have to have the community college in those first 2 years because they do hands-on really well. Last 2 years, we went to university. They do research really well. Combine the 2 of them, and we've got a really solid candidate who's going to fit the need that we have. So we couldn't have done that without the industry support that we have that continues.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And may I ask you a question, Melanie?
Of course.
Could you just indicate for us at least an overall number in terms of the dollars that you've received at Bluegrass for grants that support STEM?
I don't know STEM in particular. I can tell you that last year I think we had $8 million in grants, new grants that came in. A large portion of them are STEM related. I want to say I would have to look at the numbers, but a good portion of ours are tied directly to STEM. I'd say probably half. And then the other would be student support. So we do a lot with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And then we'll turn to Michelle Rivard with Dow. Michelle, would you briefly tell us about your work at Dow and the collaboration with Delta College?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite. So as you said, I'm Michelle Rivard, and I am an analytical R&D technologist, or what we like to call at the American Chemical Society, a chemical technical professional, or CTP for short. So I have a bachelor's degree from biochemistry from Central Michigan University with 28 years of industry experience at Dow. I specialize in silicone material measurement science, particularly in gas chromatography, so GC, and single quad mass spectrometry, so MS. And I also develop and implement standardized GC test methods for internal and external manufacturing. And I coordinate testing for regulatory purposes. So if you've ever heard of REACH, that's one of it. So within Dow, I am part of the Great Lakes Tech Group Steering Committee, which organizes various activities such as technical posters, mentoring programs, and career day events to foster collaboration, professional development among our CTP personnel in the Great Lakes region. I am also part of Dow's campus team for local recruiting of co-ops and technicians, and I'm aligned to our local community college, Delta College. I'm heavily involved in both local and national ACS, the American Chemical Society. Currently with ACS, I serve as the program chair for the Committee on Chemical Technical Professions, the secretary of the Division of Analytical Chemistry. I am a member and mentor to our local ACS Tech Group, the Mid-Michigan Technician Group, and I am the coordinator for the Midland Local Section Project Seed Program, which provides economically diverse high school chemistry students with paid summer research internship, giving them hands-on lab experience, networking opportunities to encourage them to pursue STEM careers. If you haven't guessed by now, I am a huge advocate for the next generation of scientists and the promotion of chemical technical professionals as a viable and rewarding career. No PhD required. So if you go to my next slide. So the Mid-Michigan Technician Group has had a close relationship with Delta College since the early 2000s. Several of our members, like me, sit on various Delta advisory board for their different tech groups. Because of my passion for the next generation and my involvement with MMTG, I have collaborated closely with Delta College and their ChemTech program.
Oh, there is a picture of freaking you.
We'll ask again that our guests mute yourselves. And Michelle, will let you continue.
Thank you. And Delta College Chemical Technology Program has been serving the local industry and laboratories in the Great Lakes Bay Area for over 20 years. The program is designed to prepare students for careers in chemical technology, providing hands-on skills, developing problem solving and critical thinking abilities. Since about 2017, I have been part of the ChemTech Advisory Board. During this time, I have participated in roundtable discussions with other area professionals to identify current challenges within the technical skills and recruitment and help keep the program relevant and viable. For example, when Delta's president announced that they wanted to remove all non-transfer credit from their curriculum, it meant that the analytical instrumentation class would no longer be offered. We recognize that this is a very important skill set for technicians, so we promptly communicated its critical value to Dr. Baker, who's the coordinator of the ChemTech program at Delta College. And as a result of our recommendation, recent curriculum changes now include embedding undergraduate research into their organic chemistry laboratory class and integrating analytical instruments into both their organic and general chemistry classes. So due to my extensive work with ACS both locally and nationally, and my collaboration with Dr. Baker at Delta College, we currently applied and was awarded a grant from ACS called Prepare the CTP and developing outreach opportunities to engage area high schoolers in a course at Delta College. So this initiative aims to improve current course format, address student weakness, and enhance the chemical technology program at Delta. Our collaboration focused on strengthening technical programs and providing students with hands-on experience and technical skills. And the reason why we want to pull in the high schoolers is we want them to know that this, program exists. So it's a great program, but if nobody knows about it, can't get the people, right? So on the slide, you will see a list of Dow's and Delta's colleges collaboration. This list is by no means comprehensive of all the Delta College's collaborations. These are only the ones that I am aware of with Dow, and of those, I'm actually only involved in the bottom two. So Chem Technology and then the co-op program. So in conclusion, the collaboration between Dow and Delta College has proven to be a very valuable partnership that enhances the education experience for students and supports the development of future technical professionals. Through our joint efforts, we have successfully integrated critical STEM skills into the curriculum, provided hands-on experience, and addressed the evolving needs of our industry. So ongoing initiatives such as the ACS grant-funded outreach opportunities, we hope will continue to strengthen this collaboration and ensure that students are well prepared for their careers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. And we'll turn to Stephen next, and then we're going to engage in another round robin conversation. So Stephen, briefly tell us about your role at Northern Virginia Community College, your office, and the work that it does in terms of the grants platform and focus the various. I know that Northern Virginia has a number of focus areas, but certainly we'll talk specifically about STEM a little later in the webinar. So Stephen, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So a little different than the other two presenters. Nova's a little bigger. If you can see on the next slide, Northern Virginia Community College. If you're not familiar with the area, we're just outside Washington, D.C., and we have 5 comprehensive campuses and 1 medical education campus. So in total, we have 73,000 students, credit students, and another 5,000 non-credit. So it's a lot of students, but with that size can come problems too. Sometimes being small and nimble is a good thing. Sometimes being large means you have to go slow to make sure you can bring everyone along, because with the 6 campuses, you can't run too fast and leave a campus behind. So my role, if you go to the next slide, is a unique one within the college. I run the grants office, but I also sort of run workforce, which is the non-credit side of the college, business engagement, so all our community partnerships, our business partnerships, nonprofit partnerships, career services. I have our IR department, which also includes our labor market intelligence team, and communications and marketing for the college. So you can tell from my title, we didn't really fit everything in there, strategy, research, and workforce, but it's sort of the front door for the college. Anytime our president goes out or anyone's in the community, our team really makes sure they're prepared to talk about what resources NOVA can bring to bear, talks about our partnerships, because that is front and center with everything we do. Our goal is to make sure every program at NOVA leads to a good paying job. And that requires us to talk with employers up front. The way we build partnerships, and we'll get more into this later in the presentation, but we really rely on data. We look at the labor market data about who hires our students, what type of jobs are needed in our community, and we use that data to both create new programs and sunset existing programs, because jobs have a life cycle. And as we all know from listening to different reports, the kids entering school today will probably enter jobs that don't even exist today. So how does higher ed keep up with that? And I think the strategy we've engaged is we talk to business constantly. Our president has a future of work cabinet that she meets with quarterly and talks with business leaders, the Federal Reserve, government leaders, to really where the trends are and what the emerging skill needs are. And we take that data and then we talk with other businesses, because it's fun to create things that seem like they're going to be creative, but we really want to make sure that our students who come to NOVA, take a class, take a program, actually can use those skills tomorrow and not wait 10 years for that job to show up. So it's a fine line between playing in the future and understanding the future and knowing what you need 2 to 4 years out. So my job can be very time consuming, because one of the challenges with all partnerships is it takes a lot of nurturing. Especially in the private sector, you build those partnerships and all of a sudden someone gets promoted or transferred or leaves for another opportunity, and all of a sudden you have to rebuild those relationships. So, we're talking about certain partnerships, and then a month later, my team tells me our main contact left or there was a reorganization, and now we have to start over. So we really want to make sure our partnerships are deep. And one of the deepest partnerships we've built over the last decade is with Amazon. As they look to broaden beyond Seattle, and Amazon Web Services actually was already here in Northern Virginia. And they run a lot of data centers, and we had a deep partnership with them. But once the headquarters, HQ2 we call it, came to Northern Virginia, we really even took that relationship to the next level. We actually have an MOU with Amazon to really be their test bed for new education offerings, for programs that they want to offer both to their employees and want to offer to other higher ed institutions. So it's a great relationship that we hope to replicate with other local employers. But again, I think the one takeaway would be, if you want to build those partnerships, it takes a lot of work, and it's not one person's job, it's everyone's, but coordinating that is a full-time job as well. So look forward to your questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And certainly being here in the DMV, the District of Columbia, Maryland, Northern Virginia, and Virginia really, and the like. Many of us are very much aware of the work that Northern Virginia Community College does and have learned from it ourselves, and in many ways been partners as community colleges across this region. So thank you for that. And as we go to the discussion questions, Michelle, I'd like to start with you, if that's all right. Our first
Absolutely.
question is, what is your role being where you sit at Dow and the work that you do? And I will tell you that in the chat, I noted that you have a fellow ACS individual in Jason Ford Green. So he was excited when you mentioned that. But what is your role in building effective college industry business collaborations? What do you do with regard to that, and what's important to you as you think about not just building the relationship, but it's the ongoing nature of it?
Well, yeah, Definitely. So my biggest role is definitely facilitating communication. So, I act as a bridge from my company to the academic institution, leveraging my technical expertise and my industry knowledge to help ensure that communication is clear, effective, and fostering a strong partnership. I provide insights. So, my role allows me to, you know, stay updated on the latest research and technology advancements, and we share those insights with our partners. We help them align their research with curriculum that, the industry foresees us needing. So definitely like AI and some other stuff that's coming out, right? So this leads to a more relevant, impactful collaboration and also enhancing their learning and development. So sitting on these different uh, groups, we're able to develop training programs and workshops that align with what we need. So what, the requirements that we see and foresee. So it's really helping bridging that gap between academic learning and practical industry skills. So.
All right, thank you for that. And Melanie, you've talked a lot about just the numerous things in which Bluegrass has been involved. So how do you look at it from what I'll call the academic side of the house?
Sure. So I should say, and I didn't mention this before, but the two programs that I said that are really unique, the orthotics and prosthetics, and then our equine program that has the racehorse riding classes or track, is they were all industry led. And, that's very important. They started in our workforce area of the college, and they started with small classes like that. And then the demand grew around it. And we really saw that we needed to develop the curriculum. We're also doing that with additive engineering now. And so we really partner with the local community. And as things are growing, I think that's that's my role at the college, to build those relationships, but then also to continue with those relationships and to make sure that we are living up to what the partnership was at the beginning of it, and to continue that on. We do a lot with advisory boards, and we're constantly looking at the advisory board and saying, what can we do better? What can we change? What do they need? Because we ask them to spend their time. Are we spending it the best way we can? And so at the community college and as the education provider, we have to make sure that we are doing that check back every now and then and saying, are we doing what you need? So I'd say that's our role.
Thank you. Thank you. And Stephen, you spoke a little bit about this in your introduction. Is there anything that you'd like to expand upon, as you think about building effective college industry business collaborations?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, colleges operate at a certain pace. It's the academic year. Businesses operate in a very different time setting. Often it's much more in real time, and colleges sometimes have a hard time keeping up. I know we are challenged when businesses say they want to do something. How quickly can we spin up a program? How do we bring solutions to a problem they may have identified and sat down with our president and said, hey, we've got a problem hiring these type of people. What can you do? They don't want to hear it'll take 2 years to create a program and then we'll recruit students in and they can expect a cohort in 4 to 5 years. They really want something quickly. So I think one of my chief roles is to push the college to think outside the boundaries. Like if they need a quick solution, how do we spin it up on our non-credit side, but build in credit for prior learning, for credentialing aspects? How do we then spin up at the same time the credit side, either to add certain technologies or skills to existing programs so that we can kind of steer them in a direction the industry wants, so that we can back off the non-credit as the pipeline for credit starts to get built out. And so a lot of my job is just pinging my colleagues and sending them emails like, hey, have we followed up yet? Hey, where are we on this? Because that I think people in academia just sometimes don't realize that speed is something that differentiates us from other organizations. Because if we can't keep up, they will do it with other organizations, they will do it themselves. So if we really want to be a leader in the field, if we want to be a partner with business, we have to keep up. And I think we've got to the point where we can keep up. And if in some areas, I think we're even driving some of that conversation more than the industry itself anymore, which I think is a good place to be when community colleges try to think about our role in the future. I think this sort of training and education aggregator and being that sort of future leader of what's coming next is a role we should all play.
Thank you. Thank you for that because you actually answered, at least started a response to something that I was going to ask each of you. And it's not a question that you received in advance. I want to say that out loud. But I noticed that as you were talking about keeping up and even being a partner and thinking about the future, I saw both Melanie and Michelle nodding their heads. So if there was one thing that, sort of bureaucratically, I think that we've all been there. We know that in higher ed, or education in general, whether it's 2-year, 4-year, K-12, public, private, we all have our processes, and it takes this much time to get something done, whatever that is. And, it has to go up the line to get approval. You have to have lots of meetings to talk about it. If you had to say, what is the one thing that we might be able to improve on across our sector? What might you say that it would be? Especially as we think about the future, the changing world of work and the changing skill sets that our graduates will need.
I would probably say catering to the non-traditional student. So we have 2 4-year colleges in our area, and a lot of our community college students, they have, where they go on to the 4 years. And one college is definitely geared towards the non-traditional student, where the other one isn't. And we see more of our students picking that other college because they can still co-op and finish their 4-year degree. And they know that if they finish their 4-year degree and they haven't messed up here, right? That we're going to hire them. We want them. We've already invested 4 years in them. We are going to hire them. And so definitely being able to cater to that non-traditional student by offering classes that are condensed into 1 day a week, in the evening, on the weekends, stuff like that.
Okay. That's interesting, and it's especially interesting, of course, coming from someone who's in the field, who's the industry partner, because we don't hear as much maybe of that as we should, and then giving us the ability to act upon it. So thank you, Michelle. Melanie, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mentioned the FAME program, and I don't know how many people are aware of it, but it is modeled exactly like that. You work 3 days a week, you go to school 2 days a week. So you were considered full-time, you're sponsored basically. So you get the full 2 years of trying each other out as a good fit to see if they want to work there, but if you want to hire them. And they know because they are really involved in education. They get to hear back of reports, and so it's a great model for education. I think we try to do it more and more where we're having this and we're setting classes up like that. But that's really where it started for us.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I was noodling over like 5 different things to say, but I think I landed on the funding source. I mean, one of the challenges I think we have in higher ed is we sort of performance is driven by our funding. And when you think about where we want to head on STEM, STEM is very expensive. When you look at what we get from our state, the Commonwealth of Virginia, we're getting the same amount for an FTE as I am for an English major. So, you want to grow these programs, you want to expand them, but you have to do it in a way that sort of gains the system, because you can't just turn the ship quickly to solve these problems because you don't have the resources to do that. So I think one of the challenges that if we could fix that up is really looking at what we pay per student on these high cost programs. And there are a few states that sort of have models that probably are a little more advanced than just the one size fits all. So I think I think that holds us back in some ways because we can only move so quickly without sort of running out of dollars.
But I'm sorry.
Melanie?
I was going to say you alluded to the time frame to get curriculum passed. I don't know what it is in other states, but having the support of industry and our partners backing it certainly gives it a lot more emphasis that it needs to be expedited, or it needs to go through cleanly the first time without a lot of hiccups or delays.
So we have an interesting question from one of our audience members. Tracy is asking, with the tenuous nature of NSF grants, do any of you see industry becoming more of a funding partner in these programs than might currently, be the case?
I would love that. That would be awesome. Because you're right. It's, we've played it's been a real roller coaster. I know I'm looking at a couple people nodding, and it's been a real roller coaster these last 2 months with the grants and just really holding your breath. And we've had many of them, we've had some terminated, and we've had some that we know are going to continue on, at least in the immediate. So to have industry funding or support, that would be, that's great. A lot of interviews I've been in recently, I've started to get more questions of where's your grant funding come from if it's funded for something, and they want to know because they know of how uncertain it is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Michelle, did you want to add anything, or and if
Um,
not, it's okay.
He wants
I
to
mean,
volunteer. She's saying yes, he will fund more.
I would love to give you all money. I don't have that power, unfortunately. And and I'm sure a lot of the industry would love to too. It just will depend, right? It will depend. I will have to say that right now at Dow, it's not, we're not spending money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people have been told that they can't even go to conferences. So but we
Right.
don't know what the world, what the rest of the world year is going to look like, right? So yeah, I would hope that if if it continues the way it is, I would hope that industry would step up. So
Absolutely.
that's all I can say.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I know that we are all both carefully and watching to see what's going to happen. And we are all making sending emails and talking to our counterparts in the grant world who can make a difference, and to see where we can make a difference too with our voices. So, Stephen, is there something you'd like to add? And then we'll move to the next question.
Yeah, I think, we've had success in partnering with business where they actually do provide resources, but there's sort of indicating factors. One, it's very clear ROI. Like they have a pain point and can't find certain folks. Like recently, we had our senior care facilities come together and they wanted us to incubate an LPN program. And they were so desperate that they said, we'll give the startup money for that program to help buy down the costs, scholarships. So they very quickly came together and put some money in our foundation. That really, within the next year, we were able to stand that program up. So you got to be able to show the need in the industry. And again, that differs from year to year because their hiring needs may change. And then industry says, I can find people, so I'm not really to part with my money to get you to do something different. I think the days of industry just giving checks to universities and saying, this, do good with this, if it's not solving a problem. So I think that, that's going to vary, and it's not consistent like federal money has been in the past, where it's like every year there's a grant cycle and we're going to go after it. And so you have to be looking for those opportunities. But we all know what the future of talent looks like in America, at least for the next 10 years. It's going to be a tight labor market. The skilled tight labor market works to our advantage. If we can work with industry to help solve it, there could be dollars available, I believe.
Absolutely. And there could be opportunities, I would say, too, for community college collaboration around all of this, right? So that if we're working together in either in a particular region or geographic area of the country or across the country. And I go back to some of the early grants, like the TAC grant, where we had to work across the nation in terms of building programs and opportunities for students. So we'll go to the next question. I certainly want our audience to get the full view of the expertise that you all are bringing to this CCPI-STEM. So why collaboration? What do you see as the impact of collaboration on your organization? So from the community college perspective, and then certainly from the business industry perspective. And why don't we start with you, Melanie, with regard to that?
I think collaboration works on both sides. I think for the businesses, they want to know that we're addressing their needs and that we're hearing what they need. But then for faculty, the support that's out there, or even just the college, but the students, to see that the businesses are on campus or working with, or even in many cases, they end up teaching for us. It's the best way to recruit your workforce, right? Is to teach a class then feel that you need somebody, because that way you're getting to know the people intimately, or at least get an idea of what their work ethic is. So, yeah, I think it's very valuable in that it allows you to kind of see that they're active on both sides.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, so why collaboration? I mean, collaboration between colleges and industry, it's essential, right, for driving innovation, enhancing learning, addressing real world challenges. I would say by working together, we leverage the strengths of both the academia and the industry to achieve common goals and create positive impact on society. And from a corporate standpoint, it's definitely a corporate social responsibility of ours. Engaging in collaborative projects with colleges and demonstrating our commitment to corporate social responsibility, it shows that we are invested in the development and future of generations and the betterment of a society as a whole. And I can say that back from when you guys asked about, getting money, I
Uh-huh.
can say that Dow has given every college in our area and even beyond, millions of dollars over the years. Now, obviously, that's not every year because, like I said, I know right now we're hurting too. So, but I would think that if you have big industries in your area, you probably are getting money from them or should be getting money from them, right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And it also begs an opportunity too, right? As we think about collaborations and what business industry and community colleges can do within their sort of local area,
Yeah,
and how
absolutely.
that branches out. So thank you. Stephen, anything that you'd like to add? And then there's a question for you, I think, in the chat around recommendations on free or low-cost labor market analysis software. So we'll let you answer the first question, why collaboration, and then see if you have any pointers you might provide to our audience on labor market software.
Yeah, so around collaboration, I mean, it's core to what we do. I think if you think of if we're just in the business of offering degrees or credentials, then we could do that in a vacuum. But we all know that what legislators and elected officials are really looking at as they look at our funding is like, are people getting jobs? Are they closing the skill gap? Which requires collaboration because we're not hiring these people. We're giving them skills and then we hope they get hired. And the more collaboration we have with industry allows us to sort of game the system a little and ensure that happens. In fact, for most of our non-credit programs, and we're rolling this out to our credit programs, we offer the guaranteed interview program, which ensures our students, when they enter a program, they can see which companies locally are hiring out of that program. The companies are invited in before the people graduate to get exposure and offer internship opportunities. So it's really about that hand in hand over time, creating that talent. So if you see yourself as a workforce development organization, which I see everything. My credit colleagues sometimes don't agree, but I will say we are about workforce development. And I sit on the local EDA board. It's all about making sure there's talent to grow the job market, to make sure our citizens, our residents all have these opportunities for good paying jobs. And in markets that are very expensive, that's critical. So I think collaboration is just a way of life for us. But I think all community colleges are heading that direction. All higher ed is going to be accountable to say, what are you doing to grow the economy?
Exactly. And I certainly can recall making similar comments in my role, my previous role in higher education. And I also would share my own story that I went to college not just because I wanted an education, I wanted to expand my way of knowing and thinking, but I also wanted to have a good paying job at the end of that experience. And so that is certainly no different 40 years ago to what we see today.
Yep.
So thank you for that. And now there have been some answers already in the chat line with regard to labor market software. And if you'll if you'll mute yourself, Ms. Leeper. Thank you. Fran, can you mute her for us? We got it. Thank you. But I don't know. They talked about it seems like either OneNet or something with light in it. Let me see if I can find it again.
Yeah, Lightcast.
That's it.
Lightcast is so there's several different softwares out there, and you know the market's consolidated over the years. So there's a couple big ones, and most of the when you're looking at job posting data, and you want to see the number of job postings in your area by sector, and it breaks down by skills and credentials. Those tools are usually private sector driven, and they do cost a subscription, and the subscription based on how many licenses and often maybe the size of your institution. But there are other free ones that, like a lot of our data also comes from government sources. You have ONET, you've got local federal sites, you've got state databases that you can tap into. So we get some of our data from free government sites, but when we want to go and dig into like who's hiring our students, what type of job postings could our students qualify for, we use Lightcast. And I mean, for an organization our size, we have multiple licenses on our team. It costs us about $20,000 a year for those licenses. And there's other add-ons you can do about where your alumni are and skill matching to your curriculum. So it's getting quite robust than where it was 10 years ago. But as a small institution, what I've noticed is there's a lot of communities that overbuy these things. You'll talk to your chamber or your local EDA or the college or the workforce board. Someone probably has a license if you can't subscribe, and maybe you can ship in some dollars towards that license and they'll give you the data. It's very intuitive, very simple to pull down. So they can run reports for you, because we used to try to do this when I came up from Charlotte. We did this for sort of a lot of the smaller groups that they would just ask us for the data and we would pull it for them, and they'd kick in some dollars to pay for our annual license. So I think there's ways in smaller communities, or if you have the resources yourself, to create some co-op of some sort and share that data.
Right. So there are some innovative ways to think about it where it doesn't drain your budget because you're doing it and you're not really thinking about how you can partner with others. So there's yet another way to collaborate.
Yep.
And as we go to the next question, Fran, if you'll move the slide for us, please. So, can you talk maybe, given the time that we have, maybe 2 minutes each on what you see as challenges to collaboration and/or the opportunities for change and improvement? So why don't we start with you, Stephen, if you don't mind, then we'll go to Michelle and then to Melanie.
Sure, I think, and it depends on your market. I mean, it's in smaller communities, sometimes the partnerships are obvious because there maybe is not as many employers. I mean, in an area for Northern Virginia, we have 2.5 million residents, a huge job market, tens of thousands of employers. Our challenge sometimes is to figure out where to put our time, because there's so many opportunities to create the partnerships. And as I said earlier, it requires nurturing. It requires us to sort of always be flexible when people take other jobs. So one of our early on when I got here, we used to say yes a lot to almost every partnership, and we probably never lived up to every partnership potential because we were spread too thin. And now we've really tried to look at the data and say where, from a 2-year degree standpoint, from a sub-degree standpoint, where are those partnerships that we can make the biggest impact and have the most opportunity to grow? And where is the job market heading? Are those partnerships on their way out because the industry is changing here, or are these the ones that we need to nurture to grow the market share? So I think looking at data and learning to say no. I think community colleges, sometimes we say yes so much that we can't do it all. And I think sometimes our 4-year partners are much better at saying no. This isn't in our wheelhouse. But we, as the community in our name, often say yes because we want to be a good partner. But I do think it drains our resources.
Thank you. Michelle?
I would probably say that the biggest challenge to building, successful collaborations is probably resource constraints, right? Both on the academic and on the industry side. So we're all limited in how much personnel, how much time we have. When I read off all the things that I did, trying to add something else on at any time, I would have to, take something off my plate. And I'm sure that, the academia world has got to be the same way. So definitely trying to manage the resource constraints and finding those resources to help, build collaborations. And then I would say probably the second thing might be like communication differences. So, you know, terminology in the industry is definitely different than terminology in academia. One of the biggest things is that I found when I moved from academia to industry was, being able to communicate impact, um, as an industry, we want to know, why are you doing what you're doing and why do we care, or why should we care, right? So being able to communicate that and show it very, very well is definitely something that we all need to work at together when we are doing collaborations.
Thank you. Melanie?
Yeah, and I would echo just what they said. I mean, it's a time constraint. It is a man person power. That's how many persons do you have to commit to it? It's we're in a smaller area. And we're competing against the University of Kentucky's that are in our backyard. And, are they going to offer something that we can't? So it's picking and choosing where you can and saying yes as often as you can, but being able to do it right. But I'd also say with the terminology, the timeline is something that's different too. We've alluded to it a little bit, but that's a challenge as well in a collaboration, because as you're getting started, faculty take off for the summer and then they're gone and they're not going to answer, right? Who's going to understand that if you're in the business world 8 to 5 every day? So
Thank you. Thank you for that. We heard a lot today, and some of the things that really resonated with me were, how do we think about the return on investment on both sides of the partnership, right? That's so important, and especially as we talk about resource constraints, and we know that does happen on both sides of the equation. And then certainly always thinking about what's the impact. How do we measure that impact? And I think just as importantly, how do we articulate the impact to those who are being served by this partnership, both directly or indirectly? And as we think about that, I guess as we sort of march towards the end, and we will ask you all to stay on. We have 4 poll questions that we're going to put up on the screen immediately after this last question. Is there any, is there one suggestion or one piece of advice, or not, not a suggestion and a piece of advice, but one or the other that you would like to provide to our participating audience today?
consider the crazy ideas.
You said consider the crazy ideas?
Yep.
Right. So don't be constrained.
I would say don't give up. If industry doesn't answer you the first time, be sure to either send out that email again, or try to meet them in person. I tell people my viewing window of my emails is this big, and once it's down there, I have forgotten it because I get so many emails a day.
Absolutely. Stephen?
Yeah, even though I'd said you have to learn to say no, I think when you do start to create those partnerships, you start with yes and try to figure out how to make it happen. When we first partnered with Amazon, they were making changes to some of the curriculum like every 6 weeks, and our initial folks were like, "This isn't sustainable. Why would they want this? We just built it. Why are we changing it?" And it cemented the deal that we were open to making these changes, because they were looking in real time about what each graduate coming from their program skills were working and which weren't, and what they needed to add. And that openness to saying yes and being that they considered us like almost like one of their private sector partners that was always just used to saying yes, versus I'm sorry, that's not our process. I'm sorry, it's got to go to a review committee. So I do think you have to make these partnerships work, you have to start with yes.
Yes, well, thank you for that. And I want to thank each one of you for what you brought today to this Sippy Cast, and what you're doing in your own professional lives to ensure that we are supporting students, that we're thinking about the workforce, not just of today, but of tomorrow. So as we say thank you to you, we're going to see, Fran, if you are able to put the poll questions up. So this is our first one. And, we're asking, would you recommend the recording of this webcast to a colleague? And we'll give our audience, about 30 seconds to respond. Want to be cognizant of our time. So what we will do is we're going to send the poll questions to each of you, because we have your email addresses. We really want to thank you for being here with us today. And Fran, we won't worry about it. We'll send a follow-up email and we'll ask that you'll please respond, because this helps us as we give information back to the National Science Foundation, the Advanced Technological Education Program. So we want to thank Stephen Partridge, Michelle Rivard, and Melanie Williamson, not just for the work that you do, but for coming on and sharing with us in this format. We want to thank all of you who joined us today, and we're going to wish that you have a great weekend, and we'll keep certainly staying attuned to our sector of higher education and what it is that we do in partnership with our colleagues for the millions of students every day who are looking to achieve their dreams and aspirations. So thanks to all of you again for joining us. Have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.